Well, new crypto laws are coming. I'm currently looking at a 69-page document that outlines regulations for just about everything having to do with crypto, from stablecoins, illegal securities, taxes, even crypto retirement accounts. You're probably going to like some parts of this, other parts, not so much. I went ahead and read this document so you don't have to, and that way we can discuss the highlights as well as my personal thoughts on what in the world's going on here. And you know what? Let's start with one that you'll probably like: taxes. See, it's not that bad. If this bill were to pass, there would be a $200 exemption of capital gains tax on crypto. This is to help encourage people to actually use crypto as currency to purchase things, which is kind of cool. But it also means $200 in general gains, no tax. It's important to note that this bill was spearheaded by Cynthia Lummis, who's a big fan of crypto. She is a senator in Wyoming, which is one of the most crypto-friendly states in the country. So if you're into crypto, she is a good person to help write these laws. However, that doesn't mean that you're going to love everything in this bill, especially if you're someone who just doesn't like rules. I'm one of those people most of the time, but moving on. The biggest sweeping piece within this proposed bill is which agencies will actually oversee crypto. That's actually been a big debate, like which governmental department should look at crypto. Most of the world figured that this would just be the job of the SEC, but this bill outlines that it would actually be split with another agency, the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. This matters because the bill breaks down normal cryptos into two major categories: ancillary assets and securities. Essentially, all digital assets will be designated as ancillary assets unless proven otherwise, then it's a security. So what is an ancillary asset? Well, ancillary essentially means to aid or supplement something. So in this instance, I think it's easiest to think of a crypto coin as an aid to its blockchain. A coin helps the blockchain, but isn't the blockchain. A coin is supplemental to the blockchain. The proposed bill then defines ancillary assets as intangible, meaning you can't touch it; fungible, meaning it can be replaced by an identical coin, like we could swap Bitcoin right now and neither of us would lose anything; and these assets are offered, sold, or provided in connection with the purchase and sale of a security through an arrangement or scheme that constitutes an investment. I read this as the crypto coin is representative of your investment within that blockchain. So most crypto coins and tokens will fall under that category, and anything that does will be regulated by the CFTC because they'll actually be treated like a commodity like soybeans, weed, or gold. But there are exclusions. A crypto is not an ancillary asset when they directly represent equity or ownership in some entity, nor is it an ancillary asset if holding the crypto means you personally get paid profits, dividends, or some kind of revenue share. What they'll continue to use is what's called the Howey test to determine if a crypto is a security. Now, I personally think that this test is a bit outdated for crypto, but I guess I don't make the laws, I just spend all morning reading them. Now, this creates all sorts of weird gray areas. Something popularly done with exchange tokens is they don't pay holders outright dividends, but they do buy back token supply with profits from an exchange. So here's an example. At launch, the BNB tokenomics for the Binance Exchange said we will buy back 50% of the total supply of this token with exchange profits. Theoretically, that isn't a dividend. However, holders are directly benefiting from profits of the exchange, something typically reserved only for shareholders. How does this get handled? We really don't know. In fact, it appears that BNB is in a bit of hot water right now as well with the SEC. They're looking to see if the BNB ICO back in 2017 was actually a securities offering, essentially giving holders ownership of the exchange through a coin, which is a no-no. Now, there's not a whole lot of information on this case, but it will certainly pave the way for crypto regulation in the future, as just about every single exchange token has done something similar. And it gets even weirder if you look at DeFi tokens. Many of these tokens will automatically burn supply without any human intervention. What happens there? Again, we really don't know. So the question is, if a coin is found in fact to be a security, not an ancillary asset, what happens next? Will it collapse, just disappear? The answer is no. At least probably not. The coin would simply be registered as a security as long as they can meet the SEC criteria, but then it would be like any stock in the stock market, and there would be a closer eye on that coin and the business practices around it by the SEC. Now, this would very likely cause some kind of market panic in the short run, like the first time that happens, but ultimately it would be all right in the long run. And we'd just be left with better tokens that have a bit more oversight if in fact they are securities. Now there is a silver lining to all this. If these definitions all get enacted, we'd be much more likely to see a spot Bitcoin ETF because we would then have a regulatory body in place to monitor these kinds of funds. And a spot ETF is great for crypto because it would give crypto access to far more money and far more investors, which is just good for the entire space. Now, moving on. A big debate in crypto has been who is considered a broker and who isn't. I mean, intuitively, you would think, well, someone in a business where you buy and sell cryptos would probably be a broker and no one else. And you're not alone. Like literally everyone thinks that except the law. There was some stipulations in the infrastructure bill that said those who validate distributed ledger transactions, meaning miners and stake pool operators, those who sell hardware or software used to store crypto, and those who develop digital assets are all brokers and would be subject to far more regulations. It just didn't make sense. This new proposal clarifies who a broker is and, more importantly, who isn't. Any person who in the ordinary course of business facilitates sales of digital assets for their customers is a broker. Then the doc does us all one better than that. It says that crypto miners and stake pool operators shouldn't have to pay tax on the currencies that they receive through normal business operations until that currency, that cryptocurrency, is converted into fiat currency. Now, a couple more quick things on taxes. First, the DAO. This bill outlines that DAOs should be considered legal entities for tax purposes. However, the DAO must be registered as an entity within its jurisdiction for that to apply. And finally, the bill would require the IRS to actually give us some guidance on how taxes work for things like airdrops, staking rewards, stablecoin payments, and charitable contributions, all things that are absolutely needed because taxes are just a mess when it comes to crypto. Speaking of stablecoins, this bill would help make them a whole lot safer. Starting off, any stablecoin must have, quote, high quality liquid assets equal to not less than 100% of the total face value of all stablecoins on the market. Basically, an issuer would need to have either cash, short-term US securities, or some other extremely low-risk liquid backing to any stablecoin. This is absolutely needed. And anyone who issues a stablecoin must provide a monthly audit report showing that they actually have enough cash in the bank, as well as give users the ability to convert from stablecoins to cash at any time. Basically, all the things a stablecoin should do, and most big ones do already. But it's definitely a step in the right direction. Now, there isn't anything in this proposal about algorithmic stablecoins. However, based on the cash or cash equivalent requirements that we just outlined, I don't see how a coin like UST would pass these necessary criteria. That's another thing that we'll just have to wait and see how this all gets fleshed out. Finally, crypto retirement accounts. This bill outlines that if passed, the Government Accountability Office must analyze the risks associated with these services. Personally, I don't see a big issue here, and these accounts are a crypto trader's dream because you can day trade within one of these accounts and pay no capital gains tax. That's pretty awesome. A sponsor of mine is actually iTrust Capital. I'll have them linked in the description if you want to see if that makes sense for your personal situation. So what do you think about all this? I personally think that it's a step in the right direction. We're gonna see regulations in crypto no matter what. And to be honest, I wouldn't be mad if this is what helps spearhead the cause. This bill seems to be well thought out and considerate of consumer protections as well as the necessary freedoms that we want within crypto. Sure, I would love if crypto could just be the Wild West forever. But also, at the same time, I'm sick of scams and people getting hurt in the space. For crypto to truly become mainstream, it just needs regulations. This is the case for every single financial industry. If you look back into history, you can find dozens of examples of some new finance product coming out. It's the Wild West for a while. People have way too much fun with it. They get too greedy, something blows up, people get hurt, and then finally regulations come in and smooth out some of that volatility. Honestly, we just can't have anything nice. We've proven this time and time again. We're our own worst enemies when it comes to finance. Now, the question is, will this get passed? Without some form of alterations, almost certainly no. I wouldn't be surprised if parts of this bill were passed individually, but it will likely be difficult to pass the whole thing through Congress all at once. There are definitely roadblocks in the way. Congress just doesn't get along well, first off, and there's also a whole lot of education needed within Congress for most politicians to really understand this. But overall, I think that this is likely a step in the right direction. Now, if you're sitting there and wondering what crypto might look like a few years from now, I got you covered with this video on screen. It's a must watch. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. I'm Max Maher, and I hope you have a profitable day.